We're going to get you a set of headphones, Alan, but in the meantime, we can head to Japan, to our man in Japan. Eoin, where are you?
I am in Chiba. Ger, very good morning to the three of you in studio. This is where Ireland have been living. This is where Ireland have been training. Their hotel there is the one just over my shoulder. It's a province all of its own, Chiba. We know it well from the 2002 World Cup. It's where the football team trained for a while. There was actually famously a bus that the soccer team got in 2002, and it was after Saipan and all of that. And there was 10 members of the Ireland starting team painted on the bus. They actually had to undo the spray paint to get rid of Roy Keane in that case. That's the only thing I remember of Chiba. So the rugby team are back here, and by all accounts, the facilities that they're training on, the hotel itself that they're staying in, is absolutely fantastic. It is a little bit out of the way. I have had to trek out here a couple of the days. It's about an hour and a half out from the city centre in Tokyo. And when you get here for the first time, it does kind of take you back a little bit. It kind of feels a little bit Soviet, and people who live in Chiba won't thank me for saying that. But the more time you spend here, the more you realise actually it's kind of a nice place. There was a massive crowd here yesterday, for example, for a huge gaming conference. And really, when you kind of look around the place, it's a pretty nice place. Disneyland is right over that way, and that's the first thing you see when you cross over the river from Tokyo.
What was your experience like of watching the All-Ireland football final, and have you recovered?
The All-Ireland football final, I'm not going to lie, was an absolute and complete disaster. Even if Kerry had won, I still would be saying this. So there's a couple of Irish bars around the city, and I got in touch with a few of them, but they said, no, 2 a.m. is just a little bit too late to show the All-Ireland football final replay. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And then I got tipped off by somebody who's in the know that there would be a bar showing this, and it was called Geronimo Shop Bar in Roppongi is the name of the area. So I get a train down to Roppongi on Saturday night. I bump into an Irish person immediately, and I immediately start to see that this place is a little bit seedy, this area in Roppongi, and I say to him, this kind of seems like the Temple Bar of Tokyo, and he's like, oh God, no, it's way worse than that. And it was like the seediest place I've ever been in my life. I go up to this place, Geronimo Shop Bar, and I immediately knew we had a problem. The stream didn't even get to the point where it was buffering, and I was like, screw this, and I got in a taxi home and ended up missing the first 15 minutes. Kieran Kilkenny put over his man of the match performance, 3 or 4 points, I think was it in the first 20 minutes or so.
3, yeah.
But I got the remaining 3 quarters anyway, so I avoided most of the disaster.
Yeah, so commiserations,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Kerry will be haunted by the first game for some time to come, regardless of age profile. You would have taken an All-Ireland final at the start of the year, but they don't do more. Well, that's kind of a moral victory there, You're trying to get a moral victory out of it, but you're not really into it.
That's why I'm not an inter-county footballer. I don't have that level of ruthlessness that's required there that I've shown in that tweet. Actually, the more I thought about it, the more after I tweeted, I was like, actually, no, they kicked away both games. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say, actually, on second look, looking at some of the statistics, particularly when it comes to Kerry's conversion rate, they also kicked away the second game. So
Fair
screw
enough.
you, Dublin, basically, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough. You're miles and miles away. We'll leave you at that one. The Japanese papers this morning, is there any mention of anything to do with the Rugby World Cup?
Well, actually, there is. I'm quite surprised. There hasn't really been much of a mention. So you've got only one English-speaking newspaper here, the Japan Times, and that has a little sidebar on the rugby. But this particular documentation here, I'm not sure whether to read it from front to back or back to front. I think it's back to front. In the middle has a big spread on how to play rugby. So I'm going to pore over this. This is very helpful for me. All the rules and regulations, the breakdown, greatly explained there. It's looks to be, a Samoa or a France game against Japan that they've used for all the pictures. You can see the Springboks are pictured there. So if you are in Japan and don't know the rules of rugby, this particular paper here, I don't know what it's called, is covering that. But as you can see kind of on the back page of that newspaper, it's a picture from the Japanese marathon, and that is kind of dominating proceedings across the back pages this morning here. You've got this other one that looks kind of like the New York Times, but for people living in Japan, which has kind of got the volleyball in the middle. It was a good day for the Japanese volleyball team, by all accounts, yesterday. On the front and back of their newspaper, though, they've got pictures of the marathon, as I have already mentioned, that was taking place somewhere in Japan yesterday. The Marathon Grand Championship is what it's called. Here's another one. This is like the most wackiest looking newspaper I've ever seen. Look at this.
There you go.
That really pops the shelf. M9, I think, means like inning number 9 or something. There was 2 runs, including a home run. I presume that the both runs came from the home run in the match for the Lions against the Mariners yesterday in the Japanese Baseball League. So they're leading with that particular one. If you go a couple of pages in, though, they do have a bit of rugby here. And Jacob Stockdale is pictured here in this particular Japanese paper. I tried to translate it, but the translation app I'm using is a disaster, to the point where it translated Ulster to squirrel. I don't know how that managed to happen. You've also got a lot of sumo there yesterday. We'll have a piece on OTB AM about the sumo later in the week. I was at the Autumn Championship last night. And then there's a couple of other specialty papers. This is basically the Japanese version of the Racing Post. It's wall-to-wall coverage of racing, obviously a huge industry here, and then a very wet, kind of damp from rain. The footballing magazine here from Japan as well, focusing on the J-League. So that's the look at the papers this morning. They're all non-English speaking papers, obviously, except for the Japan Times. But we're starting to see a few ripples now that the Rugby World Cup is in fact taking place in this country. It seems that there is a few more posters, I want to say, a few more things hanging off barriers and stuff here that would suggest that the tournament is here. So yeah, it's all good, and I'm sure once the Ireland fans start arriving in the next couple of days, it's really going to start exploding.
You've been at a press conference this morning where Robbie Henshaw was the main focus, obviously.
Yeah, he was. It was the main question for Greg Feek, which we heard a little bit earlier on. He says that he's still recovering. We won't get a full picture really of Robbie Henshaw and his fitness at any point. We have heard the line once again about personal data and information being shared by people. But I got this question in about Sean Klein at the end of Greg Feek's press conference. Greg, the aftermath of the squad getting announced, there was a lot of talk about Sean Klein and the tight head lock in terms of that role as a scrummager. Specifically, what does he bring to that specific position as a tight head lock? Because that seems to be the phrase of the hour.
Is it really? Honto? I mean, I think it's been talked about as well, and I think Joe spoke about it, Simon, the players, and I think for me, I'm really just reiterating what they're saying. And obviously, tight head lock, people see, oh, he's just there to do that role, but it's kind of like that Luke Thompson role, you know what I mean? Someone that can, I suppose, be confrontational, physical, do the hard yards and compliment the other players around you, but he still has to do multiple jobs well. Do you know what I mean? Not just scrum or maul or whatever. There still has to be his roles have to still be good.
Luke Thompson plays for Japan, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, exactly. He's playing in the second row for Japan. At the start of that answer, he used a Japanese word to me. I was completely dumbfounded. I was like, what are you talking? But a Japanese journalist came up to me afterwards, and he said to me that his translation was, "Is that right?" So when I said to him that the tight head lock thing is the kind of term at the moment, he said to me, "Is that right?" in Japanese. I hadn't a clue what he was talking about. So he's obviously made good inroads in terms of his Japanese already. So he's most people, like Rory Best started off his press conference with a bit of Japanese yesterday. He started off his welcome ceremony speech last Friday in Japanese as well. Like, they're on it. We'll see more from Andrew Porter as well later in the day. He's well on it when it comes to his food and all that. They have really immersed themselves in this. We saw on Jacob Stockdale's Instagram account yesterday him going down to Shibuya Crossing. We saw a couple of them wandering around the hotel there earlier. They're mingling around. They're getting around Tokyo. They're not going to be prisoners in their hotel, that's for sure.
They've learned from Bordeaux, basically.
Yeah. What are you? Have you any words learned for us on?
I haven't really, to be quite honest with you. I know how to say please, and I know how to say thank you, and I know how to say hello, and that's really all you need. And goodbye. I know how to say goodbye as well.
When I arrive out, I was hoping that you'd be my translator for me, but you've obviously no homework done. Buck up a little bit, will you?
Absolutely no. I have done a little bit of homework. I can tell you that you might notice that it's not very noisy here. It's actually kind of like a little bit of a ghost town. It's because it is a national holiday today in Japan. It is Respect for the Aged Day. So if you've got any old people in Japan, anybody over the age of 65, it is their special day. It's incredible if you look at the statistics of old people in Japan. 28.4% of Japanese people are over the age of 65. That is the highest statistic in the world. I was chatting to somebody yesterday at the sumo wrestling about the Japanese economy, and they said that one of the reasons why it might have stagnated over the last couple of centuries is that everybody's just too old here. The life expectancy for women, I think, is in the early 90s at this point of babies born last year. It's got so old to the point where Japanese people who turned 100 used to get a silver sake dish. Now they only get a silver-plated sake dish because they can't afford so many silver dishes away anymore. So that's the homework I've done, Alan. I have no Japanese for you, though.
Okay, well, do a bit more work and be ready later in the week for me.
What have you got for us this week, Owen? What's coming up? What's the schedule?
So we got a couple of things on Sunday. We had Ireland's Day in Motomachi, it's kind of like a shopping street in Yokohama. One of the most insane events I've ever been at. I was like, this is going to be a small thing, but actually, I was the only Irish person there. But I was also the only I was the only person there not wearing green. There was a lot of locals there who were absolutely obsessed with Ireland. There was a massive Kaylee on the street. We'll bring you a report from that later in the week. And of course, from the sumo yesterday, I also sat down during the weekend with, I'm going to say the only Irish person, I'm pretty confident of that, the only Irish person who's ever become a sumo wrestler. So we'll bring that interview to you during the week. We've got plenty of Irish press as well, and hopefully a few big names coming your way as well. Tonight, I'm hoping to go see Japan GEA train. So I'm on the way there right after this.
All right, we'll let you go, Owen. The weather, one last thing with the Welsh are apparently applying baby oil to their rugby balls. Is it that muggy? Is it that slippy?
Yeah, it's bad. It's like you need a rain jacket here at the same time, but at the same time you got to take the top off. Like it's that sort of thing. I feel like I'm in Marbella, but I feel like I'm in a wet day in Salt Hill as well. So it's a weird mix. Like Luke McGrath yesterday was saying that during their warm weather training, they were all wearing these sweat jackets and stuff like that because they knew that the humidity would become a thing. So they didn't go for the Warren Gatland baby oil option. They just went for sweat jackets, and perhaps that's a more sensible option.
All right, Owen, good stuff. Enjoy Japanese GAA, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.